Today on the Commanders Report, we got a brand new injury update on second-round rookie Johnny Newton for you at the top of today's show. Then we'll go into the kickers that the Washington Commanders are bringing in for competition for Ramiz Ahmed. Then make sure you guys stick around here because at the end of today's show, I'm going to give you my 5 takeaways from day 1 of Commanders mandatory minicamp here. But before we get into it, all right, we have a little bit of a like battle going on with the Cowboys Report right now. In yesterday's video, they put up 282 likes. We are trying to beat that number today. And if that's not enough motivation for you to click that thumbs up icon, here's what Tom Downey, the host of the Cowboys Report, had to say about the Commanders yesterday. The Commanders are such a joke. How could you draft Jayden Daniels over Drake May? I cannot wait for that decision to blow up in their faces when the Cowboys beat them by 20 again this season. F the Commanders. Go Cowboys. So obviously Tom Downey's got a pretty big mouth on him. Go ahead right now, shut it for him. Click that thumbs up icon and like today's show if you want to get us going here. So let's get into today's rumors and news here surrounding the Washington Commanders. First up here, we're going to be talking about Johnny Newton, where head coach Dan Quinn gave an update on the second-round rookie defensive tackle. He has had 2 separate foot procedures, the same procedure actually on each foot this offseason, and he's missed OTAs, now he's missing minicamp. This is what the update Dan Quinn gave us yesterday. He's hitting all the markers that he's supposed to hit. He's able to do light working out, and then we'll keep progressing that all the way up until training camp, but no decisions made yet in terms of the start of camp or not. So we'll take that kind of week by week as it's going, but he's hitting all the right markers. So what it sounds like right now is that Newton is, the procedure went well. Both of them went well, and, he's able to work out a little bit, probably upper body stuff right now, but the Commanders are not sure if he's going to be able to start training camp this year. It sounds like they're optimistic that he's going to be able to start the season, and, if he's not really getting a lot of work in training camp, I'm guessing he's probably going to start the season in more of like a backup rotational role, but it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds over the rest of the offseason program as we progress into training camp. And that's going to be the big question, right? Will he be ready for the start of training camp this year? Now, nobody really knows, not even Dan Quinn knows at this point, or at least he's not telling us what he thinks at this point. But I do think eventually Johnny Newton is going to be just fine here, and I do think he's going to be able to suit up for Week 1 when the Commanders play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Week 1 this year. Now, predict it for me down there in the comments section. Will Jayden Newton, Johnny Newton, whatever you guys want to call him, will he be ready for training camp this year? Type yes or no for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. And when that happens, take advantage of that time by giving me a yes or a no down there in the comments. So now let's get into the next segment here where we're going to be talking about the kickers that the Commanders brought in yesterday for visits and for workouts. So they brought in Jake Bates, who is the best kicker in the UFL this spring, for a visit. Yesterday, no deal got done. He has a lot of different visits planned with other teams like the Lions and the Ravens and a couple other teams also are bringing him in for visits, and he's going to make a decision in the coming days. But also, this team is going to be looking to probably bring in some competition for Ramiz Ahmed, who this team brought in last week. Ahmed was cut by his UFL team, the Birmingham Stallions. And they brought him in because he was a free agent at that point last week. Now that the UFL season is over, there's more guys that are available, and they are bringing in Jake Bates for a visit. And listen, man, this is the guy that I absolutely want the Commanders to sign. They brought him in for a visit here. He had a 64-yard field goal that was made this year. Okay, that is absolutely a rocket leg for somebody that is not currently signed to an NFL roster. So this is probably the guy that I want. But the Commanders also brought in Andre Smite, is how I'm pretty sure you pronounce this here. And then also Matt McLaurin, 2 other kickers here that they brought in for tryouts during mandatory minicamp. So we said it last week when they signed Ramiz Ahmed that they would probably bring in more competition here as the UFL season wrapped up, and that is definitely what's going on. But for me personally, guys, I am going to be bringing in Jake Bates, who was the best UFL kicker this year. The Commanders' kicking position is definitely the most open position in the National Football League here after the Commanders released Brandon McManus. So I do think Bates is the better option. And like we said, guys, a 64-yard field goal earlier this year, so he's still young. He's got a rocket leg. And if you're looking for somebody that could be your franchise kicker moving forward, I think Jake Bates definitely gives you the best opportunity to do that heading into the 2024 season here. So before we get into the rest of today's show, make sure you click that thumbs up icon. Again, we're in the middle of that like battle with the Dallas Cowboys report. And if you're a real one, you want to help us win that like battle today, make sure you click that thumbs up icon right now. So now we can get into my takeaways here from day one of mandatory minicamp from Washington Commanders practice. And there's definitely some interesting things here to discuss here, namely about number 2 overall pick and new quarterback here for the Commanders, Jayden Daniels, who took a large majority of the first team reps with the offense yesterday. I thought maybe for the first time, for the first, couple weeks here of OTAs, even the first couple weeks of training camp, Marcus Mariota might force Jayden Daniels to kind of, one-up him in practices and that like, but it's already Daniels getting the first team reps. He is already QB1 of this team, and I fully expect him to be named the starter here relatively soon, and he's going to be the week 1 starter when the Commanders play Tampa in week 1. Speaking of Jayden Daniels, I'm not the only one that has been impressed with Jayden to this point in the OTA portion of the offseason. Terry McLaurin, the number 1 receiver of this football team, is also impressed with QB1 here. This is what he had to say about Jayden Daniels. He came in really prepared. I feel like when he was getting 1's reps or where he's working with the 2s, he does a great job of getting the most out of the reps that he needs to accomplish. I think he's going to be a really good player because of the time and the work that he puts in. Always good to hear that. Then he continues to say here, I don't think I've had a young quarterback that really has come in and within the first week, he's like, hey, can we get this route? Or let me get this rep after practice. So Terry is obviously very impressed with Jayden Daniels' work ethic, his approachability, his charisma, all that great stuff. And then also another connection that's building between Jayden and one of his receivers is Dyami Brown, who I've said multiple times here on this show, I think it makes sense for these guys to really hit it off, and that is absolutely what's going on at Commanders mandatory minicamp right now. Multiple long receptions down the field between these 2 players, and Dyami's always been somebody that's been a downfield threat, even going back to college there at North Carolina, and Jayden Daniels is always somebody that can throw a beautiful deep ball. So it seems like these 2 skill sets really mesh together, and yesterday it was a great connection between quarterback and receiver here. Then another takeaway here, getting away from the Jayden Daniels stuff, Cornelius Lucas got the first team reps at left tackle. Now, this is kind of what was expected. Lucas is the veteran in the room. Brandon Coleman is the 3rd-round rookie who kind of had a rough season at TCU last year, had a kind of a rough Senior Bowl. He tested well. He's got long arms. He's got some nice potential, but it certainly seems like Lucas is going to get the first crack at the job, and Coleman, when we put the pads on in training camp, that's going to be his time to potentially take the job away from him. But I do expect Lucas to keep that job throughout camp and to be the week 1 starting left tackle for this team if they don't bring in somebody else in free agency or trade. Then the final takeaway here, Luke McCaffrey. Okay, you get this guy picked number 100 overall in the 3rd round as a wide receiver. He was seen after practice, taking some handoffs from new running backs coach and run game coordinator Anthony Lynn. And, Lynn is one of the best running backs coaches in the National Football League. He really knows what he's doing. And honestly, guys, the more Luke McCaffrey can do for this roster this season, the better, all right? I know we have B-Rob. I know we got Austin Eckler. I know we got Chris Rodriguez Jr., who the Commanders really like as well. But, the more that Luke McCaffrey can do, and he is a bigger person, okay? Like, he is somebody that could potentially play a little bit of running back in a pinch. He could be used on jet sweeps and screens and all these different things where a handoff might be utilized. So I do think the more that Luke McCaffrey can do, the better it is for this roster, and it was nice to see him get a little bit of that work in. All right, that'll be it for today's edition of Commanders News and Rumors. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we got more great Commanders content coming your way for the rest of this week.